Welcome back to Primary Teaching with Dom. Hello and welcome back to Primary Teaching with Dom. I'm actually going to tell you the steps, or not even the steps, just a mumble jumble conversation on how I passed my PGCE interview, and hopefully gives you some pointers on how you can do it too. So let's get on to our video. So I had my interview last year. The first thing that they asked me to do was to actually come into the university that I applied for. And when I got there, there's quite a lot of us at that time. I was looking around to see if there's any male people, because that's a point of discussion, where are the male teachers? And I did find quite a few, but I just sat at the front. I'm good. I sit at the front. And the director of the PGCE course came round, and she was discussing about the PGCE primary route and the things that would happen and previous experiences. We even had some past students who did it, who are doing it currently, come in and talk about it. And the lovely thing that we had to do was to do a maths test. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't really prepared for that at all. I wasn't prepared. They just said, yeah, so now you're going to do a maths test, don't worry about it, you don't need to, it's not anything really bad, we just need to assess where you are. Now, when you hear the word test, you're not automatically thinking, oh yeah, that's fine then, I don't need to pass it. You're thinking, oh, lovely, just what I wanted. So we kind of sat down for about 15 minutes and did the maths test. We went through the maths test, and then we passed it along to the rows, and they took the maths paper and they were like, okay, thank you very much for that. And then now you're going to be going into individual groups. So we went into our in little rooms. We had a designated person with two designated people that we were with on who were like the head of the PGCE course, or mentors on the PGCE course. And we went into a room. There were about 15 of us, so we were split into groups of 7, with one group having 8. I do know maths, just about. Was that actually correct? Yeah, I was. So, we had these, we had to have a discussion. So we were given a scenario where we had some cards and we had to rank them in order of importance. So I think my one was something to do with school life in general. So homework, is homework important, dealing with parents and all that. So we had to rank them in order in our groups and actually have a discussion on why we thought these were going into this order. We had to do it in front of the 2 adults who were part of the PGCE course that were assessing you, and we had to do it in front of the other group as well. So we went up, and one tip that I will say is to not be shy. Don't stand in the corner and say anything, because the people are actually looking to see whether you have that teacher presence. Can you be in front of a group and say things? Now, you don't need to be the most confident ever. You don't need to be, look at me. You don't need to do that. However, it's important that you say something at least, because if they just know you're in the corner looking shy and just doing that, I know it's, for a lot of people, it's so hard to do, and I know. But for that moment, you just got to, because as a teacher, when you're in front of loads of children, you've got to put that teacher face on and just be like, hey, I'm commanding the presence. So that's what you need to do. However, don't be overbearing, because they're also looking that you're a good communicator and you're a good listener. That was a very key. So you got this other people's points of view, kind of nod and be like, yeah, and then lead off from what they're saying. A really good skill to have, especially in a group, is to give each other kind of a routine. So you will talk first, I will talk after, you will talk then, and if there's any questions, which there was, you kind of just feed off each other and just be like, yeah, they were right, and I've got to say that. You've got to be able to work in a group. It's very much key. So after we finished doing that, now we had the other group and you had to ask them questions, and it's quite good to have questions to ask them, because it shows, 1, that you're listening, and 2, that you're actually interested. And I'm not a person to really like asking questions, I really don't. However, I did ask one question, just one. It's good, it shows that you're listening, that you paid attention. So it was all good, and then after that they said, okay, you're gonna have an individual interview. Now, my one was a little bit different. I know I don't think they do this unless you really have to. Mine was on Skype interview, so we were looking face to face on video, which was really interesting. I was just in my home with my red wallpaper and a red shirt. So I blended in very nicely, and I kind of sat there. There was a specific time, and she called, and she was asking questions. Now, what they said at my interview, and I was a program ambassador. On interview, when they do individual interviews, they're not going to be pummeling in questions at you. They're not going to be asking this and that. A trick to a very good interview is when the interviewer doesn't ask you any questions at all, or even probably one or two to lead you into a certain direction. But that is a host of a good interview, because they're feeding off you. So they could say, why do you want to do this course? I want to do this course because I love teaching. I think it's absolutely amazing. I've done loads. I've had many experiences. I worked as a TA. Even when I was younger, I did my own lesson plans. They'd be like, oh, how was that? And they'd be like, oh, it was amazing. And I really enjoyed it. And you just have a conversation to the point where you don't even know you're having an interview. They're like, okay, but that's it. That's all. And you're like, what? So just asking different questions, just going through, just being authentic. Don't force it, because they can tell. Just say what's on your mind. Just be nice and courteous at all times. And if they ask you one question and the interview's finished, don't think it's a bad thing. It's actually quite an impressive thing. I think on my interview I had 2 questions, really. One was, why do you want to do this course? And 2 was, what do you think are the current issues in primary education at this moment in time? Now that you do need to know. However, TES, or they call it TES, is amazing. The Guardian education is amazing. Just typing in the current issues in primary education is amazing. You'll see loads of things, whether is homework important, private schools versus this public schools, all those kind of things. There's plenty. So my mumbo jumbo tips for you is, 1, to just be calm and be authentic. Don't worry about it, okay? You got to do what you got to do. If you love teaching, you will get onto the course because they will see it. 2, don't force it. The worst thing you can do is to force an interview. It's the worst thing ever, because you're not going to be able to keep up that facade. It's just not going to work, and they can see right through it, to be honest. 3, don't be disheartened if they don't ask you much questions, because you're just having a good old conversation with them, and that's all they want to see, that you can have a good conversation and that you know what you're talking about as well. And I don't know if this is going to be my last one per se, but it's just to be aware of the current issues in education, because you're eventually going to be that teacher that's going to hopefully try and do something about it in the small way that you can. So being aware of what you're going into is key. You need to be aware of the issues that you're going to face when you become a teacher. So those are what I did, and I passed it quite successfully. I got accepted the next day, so I was quite happy. I did have to wait because she had other interviews to do, so I had to wait until the next day. But she basically told me, interview, yeah, that's fine, I'm glad, I can't wait until you get onto our course. So I kind of already knew I got it, but you just never know, it could literally be that blimp. So but that's how to be successful at your PGCE interview. Just be calm, be patient. If you love teaching, tell them that you love teaching. Literally say, I love teaching, I've done this, I've done that, I've looked into this. It'll be the most amazing thing. And when you get on there, you'll be like, oh, thank goodness for that. And then the worst is yet to come. But that's how I passed my PGCE interview. And I'm sure that can go on to schools' direct interviews and teach first. I think those ones may have a bit more questions, but you'll be fine. I'm hopeful that you enjoyed this interview, and hopefully it helped, and I shall see you in my next one.